We are not Sports Center. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Debate Amongst Friends. I am the Professor John Gotti. My co-host over here is Doc Leesner, the podcasting beast, and we're ready to provide you with another fun edition of sports news, analysis, and the reads.
And we are back. Welcome to Debate Amongst Friends alongside the Professor John Gotti. This is Dr. Wednesday Night, the podcast beast. And the bubble, ladies and gentlemen, has finally been popped as the NBA Finals has come to an end. What a great experiment.
I can agree with that. It was definitely a very intriguing experiment, something that can always be improved on. It wasn't perfect. There were no new cases, so big congrats. Shout out to Adam Silver for doing an incredible job of controlling the amount of interaction that people have with the outside world, outside of a couple of stories. And B, still having the fan interaction, despite the fact that no fans were actually allowed in there, minus up to the playoffs where friends, well, basically the family actually were allowed to attend, actually. So, Adam that helped Silver, out for
baby.
That it allowed for a lot of players to feel remotivated and play with, completely without resolve for any regards for human life. And it showed out in their series. And for others, they were just ready to go home.
I can agree with that. I definitely think that people were ready to go home. And yes, I did say Adam Silver, baby.
I was going to try to gloss over that. I was going to allow you that.
I wanted to come back. Adam Silver, baby.
Okay.
And the reason I'm giving Adam Silver a shout out is because there were some people on, I don't know, I guess my timeline and maybe some other places where we're calling for Adam Silver to be the commissioner of the NFL.
I don't blame him.
Which is pretty sad, but I mean, I haven't heard Roger Goodell's name in months. Months.
Oh, I've heard his name. It just wasn't in a positive light.
I haven't heard his name in a positive or negative light, which is pretty negative all around if you haven't heard the commissioner and you have positive tests. But
since his statement about Kaepernick,
that's the last time I heard his name mentioned, and it's pretty sad actually. But yes, so we had the Lakers ending the run 4-2 over the Miami Heat. I said it. I told you I'd say it again. The Lakers were trailblazers. They landed the Rockets. They flushed the Nuggets. And they chilled the Heat in this bubble. A lot of people are saying that they had the easy way out. I don't think so. I think this is what the West had to offer in a shortened season with each team, in my opinion, kind of in a tough spot because there were some certain injuries. There were some questionable rotation decisions, but ultimately the Lakers were able to come on top. I'm not going to get into any more GOAT debates. I'll never claim LeBron to be the GOAT. I don't really think it matters at this point what he does. I know that he's a great player. I know that he's been on some great teams. He's a statistical nightmare for most teams. He plays very hard. I don't know, and I'm going to stick to this. I don't know if they win these games, and this is going to sound so ridiculous, but without Rondo, oh my God, big time Rondo.
I can't believe you keep saying Rondo.
Playoff Rondo. I mean, my guy turns into a whole other person and just really steps it up. He was hitting threes, which I attributed to him tired of attacking the basket and wanting people to put respect on his jumper, on his ability to knock down the shot so that he could continue to drive the lane, which he did a few times in this series. But ultimately, I believe the Lakers deserve to win. I mean, they fought hard. The referees didn't really control the series like they normally do, which I was pretty happy about. Um, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good series. I wish you were there to see it.
Yes, and Doc is right. I didn't watch any part of the finals. Um, I'm happy the season's over. I think this is a great chance for the league to gather the data from the bubble, identify areas that they can definitely improve on there for next season. Um, do I think we will have a full season next year? Knocking on wood, because it's not going to happen anytime soon. We're already in October, folks, and normally we would be right back watching basketball, but we're not. We're not going to have the NBA season until at least maybe January, maybe even March. But do I see them doing an 82 game season for next year? I don't think so. I think they'll probably have a much more shortened season. I'm predicting maybe about 60 games will probably be suffice to at least get things back towards a norm and get the season back towards its regular cycle. In regards to the Lakers, absolutely, I agree with Doc. Congratulations to them. I think at the end, we just needed to have a champion come out of the bubble. I think I was more happy with the fact that we was able to finish up this NBA season. First of all, like that's the first paramount point of this whole thing, and I think Doc can agree with me with that. The fact that we was able to finish up this NBA season at all is a huge victory. Of course, without any new cases that came arise from within there, because we know that if any cases was to become positive within the bubble, then that bubble is popped early. I guess you could call it a premature population.
Yikes.
But yeah, I mean, big congrats to the Lakers. Of course, the storyline around that was them trying to do it for Kobe and Gia. So the storyline, helped out a lot with it. I'm with Doc. I'm tired of talking about this GOAT debate. Doc and I've spent years trying to have logical conversation with people about this whole GOAT debate. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, LeBron is the best of this current generation. That's no one can't debate that. No one can. And I think I would leave it at that. Of course, Rondo played pretty well. KCP played really well for game 5, sorry. He had a really great game 5. Kuzma had a great game 4. Of course, game 6, the aforementioned final game of the season, they just completely extinguished the Heat and stomped them out by halftime. So it was probably really much need to watch the rest of the game. But of course, the NBA, anything can happen. But yeah, big congrats to them. Big shout outs to the Heat as well, too. A scrappy young team. Of course, the story leading out of there is whether or not Jimmy's want to try to stay. I think he's going to stay. I think he's going to end up becoming a lifelong Heat player. Pat Riley loves him. Coach Spoelstra, very emotional after the game, of course, because he really believed in this team, and this team really believed that they could have, quiet down the naysayers, despite all the injuries that they had. And like Doc mentioned, the ref play has been an issue throughout the entire bubble, even before the playoffs. So the fact that they were able to have these last 2 games and do a much better job of officiating, that within itself is another pretty huge victory. The hope is that they could continue this trend going forward, because I don't know about you, Doc, but I feel like when the refs take control of the game like that, it just ruins the integrity of the sport.
No, definitely. Once you take out the action, and we have to worry about the refs pretty much taking the fun out of the program. I mean, just like, here we are, we have these great basketball players, these are the best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have these refs where they're, I don't want to say being having petty. I guess the petty calls.
I wouldn't say petty calls. I would probably say it's more like they're trying to control the pace of the play.
And we don't need that. We don't need them to control the pace of the play. We need them to just be there and just watch the game.
Yes.
Call the fouls that are supposed to be called.
Yes.
Hold the whistle more than you blow the whistle. Hold it.
I think the problem is like it's a coin. Like there's two sides of it. Like, yes, we want them to hold the whistle, but at the same time, like if you see something that's egregious, you definitely need to blow that whistle. We've definitely seen that, especially during these playoffs, where we've seen some blatant fouls or blatant traveling violations that they're not really blowing their whistle on. I will say this though, how much that we give them a lot of smack, they're not as bad as Dick Bavetta and Joey Crawford. They were really, really bad, like horribly bad, and they had egos behind it too. But yeah, I'm just happy for the NBA for able to finish up their season, the WNBA as well as the NHL. All three were able to finish it up without any new cases. Of course, we're going to talk about NFL in a little bit.
Here, before we jump right into that here.
That's what I said, a little bit.
No, absolutely. Because there's a lot of NFL stuff to get to. But just some aftermath of the end of the playoffs here. What did you feel, or how did you feel about the Danny Green death threats? How ridiculous was that?
It's not as ridiculous if you really think about it. We have several different levels of fans. We have the casual fan.
Me.
We have fan of players. We have fan of team. Well,
there you go.
Scratch that. Casual fans that just started watching the sport recently. Then the other two. Then we have the fanatics. And then we have fanatic enough to where they might do something stupid, aka former Oakland Raiders, fans of the Raiders when they were playing in Oakland in the black hole, like that.
I think there's one that you might be missing, and that would be the gambling fan.
That's towards that crazy one where, because I mean at that point, you're talking about them potentially losing a lot of money. We're not talking like FanDuel. No, of course, FanDuel doesn't. Yeah, like we're not talking 50 cents. We're talking like, $50,000 bets kind of things. And if they lose, they're going to have to, pay up $200,000, that kind of thing. Like that's towards that top echelon. Like they don't really care so much about the team, but they're trying to get their, Sam Rothstein on. And for those that don't know who that is, definitely Google it.
and shout out to Hidden Gem, Adam Sandler and Hidden Gem. I mean, that kind of covers that kind of stuff also. Mm-hmm. You're putting everything on, one player to do well, and goodness. So I don't know if that's Danny Green's fault. I mean, The play was right. I think the problem that I have with it is that LeBron made the right play. Yeah.
Well, he's always made the right play. That's never been the issue. I feel like there's been such a misconnect on basketball logic versus, now we've seen this one side, he should have done this other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what's wrong with the NBA today. We're so... We hyper react to everything. So let's take the Danny Green play, for example. Everyone knows what happened now.
Right.
And everyone's saying, well, LeBron should have took the shot. LeBron should have did something else other than pass it to Danny Green. Well, on the other side of that, Danny Green made that shot. People will be lording over him.
Hey, Robert Horry.
Thank you. They would be calling him the next Robert Horry and everything. Like the problem is, you can't have your cake and eat it, folks. You just can't. Like you have to take the situation for what it is. You can't go back in history and change it, and you shouldn't be sitting there threatening someone over a game, like at all. It's Bush League that they did it. To answer your question, it was Bush League that they did it, and they have no place within any sports to be doing that. like at all. Like, you want to call someone trash? Great. That's your own opinion. You know,
That's perfect. Yeah.
you can say whatever you want about that, but don't.
That's the limit. Yeah. That's
don't
the limit.
ever threaten someone's life like that.
For them doing their job.
For them doing their jobs. Because the same people that would sit there, and of course, you know, we don't know who have been setting out these death threats. They're just saying that, you know, he's been getting out these death threats. So, you know, unfortunately, we can't say this is speculation because this is pretty serious. Like, we can't joke about this. This isn't a joke. This is, you know, at the end of the day, this is a grown man and his family's livelihoods being threatened. And it just doesn't belong in sports, period. And if you really feel this passionate about this and you really feel, you know, that angered by it, then you need to go see someone about this and get your stuff together. But it does not belong in sports, period.
So that doesn't belong in sports. Now we're going to continue on with this basketball talk really quickly here, as I know time is never on our side here. Got some first here. You got Dwight Howard winning his first ring. You know, obviously Quinn Cook winning his second, Rondo winning another. A couple of people, obviously Anthony Davis winning his first ring. I'm looking at this, and Quinn Cook kind of stood out to me because he's a great player, 27 years old. And the reason why I'm bringing him up is because I feel like, you know, here's a guy who really didn't play too much. And when I look at Quinn Cook, I'm thinking to myself, like, a lot of these guys who are, I don't want to say bench players, I want to say role players.
Yeah, they're role players.
A lot of times, those are the guys that wind up becoming coaches in the future.
Yes.
You know, and I'm thinking about Quinn Cook because I see the success of Ty Lue. Although Ty Lue has been a great coach in his tenure so far.
Are we going there right now?
We are.
Okay.
I think back to when he was getting crossed over. He got the step over. You know, he hit a couple of jump shots. He had the braids, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm looking at him like, Quinn Cook now has 2 rings.
Yep.
You know, he doesn't really play on this Laker team. So he could be one of those new coaches. Now, the reason why I bring up Ty Lue is because obviously Ty Lue, and yes, Ty Lue. I know.
I thought you said Ja Rule for a second. I was about to mark out right there.
Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy are both, I guess, candidates for the Houston Rockets job.
Yes. And Jeff Van Gundy is interviewing on Wednesday. Right.
And to me, it's like, I wonder, you know, who out of these, you know, these 2 teams, you know, where you have these players, like, I wonder who's going to be the next coach, you know, out of these players, because that's where you get this great pool. And I don't know Quinn Cook's personal, like, his mind. I just know that he's been on a couple of good benches. And it just so happens that those benches, you know, have thrived and won based on the starters, in which he has to prepare those starters to play.
Yep.
So, because he's ultimately on the practice squad. I'm going to throw that out there. So I just wonder who the future coaches are of this league. And it just made me think about Quinn Cook. And I wonder if he's just one of those guys that one day we're going to look and say, man, Quinn Cook, he's going to be an NBA head coach one day. You never know.
I'd be interested in finding out if it actually happens. I'm never against seeing people get the opportunities to be able to coach.
Look at Luke Walton.
I mean, Luke Walton, I really feel bad for the situation after he left Golden State and he went to LA. And that's it. Like, it was just bad from the start, and you could just tell. But I think the problem with a lot of coaches is if they came from a successful team, the expectation is way higher heading into a rebuilding team versus, you know, a coach that came from, you know, wherever.
Right.
And is joining a team that's on the rise, and it's a natural progression up, you know? Like you could tell there's a vast difference between the two.
No, absolutely. And it stinks because that Golden State team obviously was well put together. And
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of what we talked about with Ty Lue, where we kind of had that conversation about Eric Spoelstra, which has kind of been dispelled because he's been successful without all three of those individuals that took him to the finals those times.
Yep.
He's been able to rebound. He's been able to put teams together that have been successful without Wade, without Bosh, without LeBron, where nobody else has been able to do that. And that also includes Ty Lue. That includes Mike Scott? Not Mike
Yep,
Scott.
Mike Scott.
No,
not Mike Scott. I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Then you had the other coaches that the Cavs had before Ty Lue. Just a slew of coaches that have come through, and that LeBron effect, that superstar effect, where a lot of these guys just don't make it after the superstar leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Stan Van Gundy included. Stan is actually up to interview for the Zion Pelicans job.
I saw what you did
How apropos there would it be for him to take over another big man? But that's all I got for basketball. I'm glad the season ended in a good way. I mean, like you said, no positive results, no positive tests for COVID, which means the bubble was successful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this offseason will give them an opportunity to create 2, 3, maybe 4 bubbles and spread those players out a little bit and not have them all in Florida.
Yeah. That's why I said they just have to take the information that they got from this bubble and just try to improve on it. Because I don't think we'll get back to any type of normalcy anytime soon. Exactly. Because we're stubborn.
It's very sad, actually. It's very sad. But with that sadness, there comes joy, and we'll be right back with more debate amongst friends. Oh, joy.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get off the hardwood and the bubble and head to the gridiron. Doc, week 5, almost in the books. Of course, we have one more game. But we had returns, we had unfortunate departures, and we had firings. It's a lot that happened this weekend. Alex Smith returned. Unfortunately, the Washington football team fell to the Rams 30-10, but it was great to see him back on the field. Of course, 2 years ago, he had a horrific leg injury. It was great to see him back. We also had the 49ers starters, Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, as well as Raheem Mostert, starting running back, also coming back. Unfortunately, they got shellacked by the Miami Dolphins. Doc, what were your thoughts on those two?
It was great to see those guys back, obviously healthy. Obviously, the 49ers couldn't get it done. I think my brother said he picked the Dolphins to win, so that was kind of perfect for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the football team in Washington,
good job.
Ron Rivera has his hands cut. I mean, it's gonna take some time to really rebuild, but I think with Alex Smith coming back, the football team of Washington, they will eventually rebound. I don't know if they have an identity on that football team of Washington. I'm still trying to figure out, who they're outside of the wide receiver, McLaughlin, I believe his name is.
Yep.
I don't know who else they can really rely on, especially after Geis, his incident in the offseason and then releasing him, which, by the way, in every Madden franchise that I start, I've taken him out of the game no matter what, because you just can't be out here doing the thing that he was doing. Yeah. But the football team of Washington, I believe, will eventually rebound and discover what their identity is. Last thing on the football team from Washington, I believe that their defense is pretty strong. I think they should have ran a similar offense that they ran with Cam with the option, because I think Dwayne Haskins really could have gotten that done.
Yeah.
And if Alex Smith is healthy, then Alex Smith can get that done as well if they wanted to run that type of offense.
Yeah, and I think it's going to take a few weeks for them to refine that groove with Alex Smith, at the helm. And I mean, NFC East is still wide open, unfortunately. So
wide open.
It's still any team's game. But speaking of the NFC East, we have returns, and unfortunately, we had a departure. The Giants versus the Cowboys. It was a nail biter, and the Cowboys left with the win 37-34, but they lost a key piece to that offense. Exactly. It was so bad. It's like sneezing
on the air. I don't know.
So the Dak Prescott injury, which he got out of surgery. They said surgery went well, so that's great. This injury speaks on so many different levels. And Doc, you're the true GM between the two of us. So you could probably speak more on this than I. But and we talked about this during our book club conversation as well, but I was stating, and I don't like to be that guy, but is this really a big win for the Cowboys? Like the unfortunate circumstances, and they're like, well, I mean, we're going to pay you, but I mean, now that you hurt yourself, I mean, there's not much we can do. And I hate to say that. Like, I really, really do. But with this injury, they don't need to pay him as much as he wanted going forward. Because, yeah, he may come back and he may be, like, he's not going to be that same level again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Doc's also mentioned this too. Around the time the injury occurred, Doc was saying, well, it didn't just break like that. Like it had to been hurt beforehand. And I was telling him, like, I think it was slightly fractured at one time, and I had to try to remember back to a couple of injury reports. Like it was there, it was more or less wear and tear. Of course, the amount of PSI it took to actually do something like that. And please, we do not recommend you going out and try to find the video. And I'm disgusted on all these YouTube channels that have plastered it on there literally 2 minutes after it occurred for the clicks. Like, it's inhuman to do such a thing. But that gotten a lot of love from the sports world, from the entertainment world as well too. And Doc and Prof, we both wish him a speedy recovery as well.
So you asked a whole bunch of questions there. You made a whole bunch of statements. I have to try to go back and remember everything you just said. But
GM wise, is this a win for the Cowboys in regards to paying him?
So first of all, I'm actually a terrible GM. I mean, my EFL record shows.
We're not looking at EFL. We're just looking strictly as a GM. Is this a win for them?
I don't think so. It kind of puts them in a dangerous situation because, number one, it's week 5 of the NFL right now.
Yes.
Which means I think they said he has about 8 to 9 months of recovery. He just had his surgery yesterday. So 8 to 9 months from now is about August of next year, which, would put him, if he's aggressive, in time for some training camp. He'll be out there. He'll be able to run. He'll be able to do everything. I think he'll have to get his confidence back, but
that's
ultimately, yeah, because after you hurt yourself, it's more of a mental game. I know better than anybody else. just running after you hurt your legs, like just running. Like I remember when I just tore my ACL, PCL and stuff, and it was like after the surgery, I'm walking with my crutches on, and I go, I'm crutching the entire way to the doctor's office, right?
Yep.
And then he says, "Hey, you can put your leg down, right?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah,
yeah.
You can put your leg down. You can put weight on it." I'm like, "Oh wow, well, you look at that." So it's like mentally, I would have never put my leg down. I would have kept my leg up and put on those crutches. I would put all my weight on these crutches for the longest period. But then when he told me to put my leg down, I was like, "Oh snap!" That's full strength. So to answer the question, I think this puts them in a dangerous position because they have to do something with him. Like
he'll be a free agency after this season.
Yeah. So now you have the Red Rocket, right?
Yep.
You got Andy Dalton there. Andy,
as well as Kellen Moore as a backup.
Andy is going to is going to give you Toy Story feels.
Wow.
Right? And
folks, I'm so sorry for asking this question.
I feel like they're going to put him in a situation because if Andy Dalton starts to win and you say, "Hey, I might be able to pay Andy Dalton 15 to 17 million a year, I might have to let Dak walk." And of course, the Cowboys at that time would seem like the jerks, but it goes back to what Earl Thomas did a couple of years ago to the Seahawks. Like, "Hey, I'm going to flip you off because I didn't really want to play, but you guys are calling me out. Now I'm hurt. Now I'm not going to get paid. And now I'm out the door. Screw you guys."
I loved how many people kept saying he should have done that while he's being carted away.
Well, it's different because, at quarterback, let me tell you something. Dak got $30-something million still.
Yep.
Yes, I know that it wasn't all this guaranteed money, but $30-something million is still a lot of cash. Even if he comes back and, all right, let's say he doesn't get the 30-something million that he was supposed to get, and he winds up getting the 27 to 28 that they wanted to pay him, or somebody else gives him the 27 to 28 million, because that could easily happen where he might go to the football team in Washington or the New York Giants. There are several teams that could, easily, say, "Hey, this solves a lot of our issues.
Yep.
Why don't you come here and play here for us? Because them boys don't want you."
I can agree with that.
So, to answer your question, this puts the Cowboys in a really, really tough position, which they might be in a pickle anyway because they're going to have to pretty much restructure their whole defense. They're going to have to do something with that because they stink. They're going to have to get rid of their whole, they're going to restructure their whole offensive line because they're getting banged up and some of them might be done.
Tyron Smith is out for the year, I believe.
Exactly. You already lost a lineman, because of a rare form of condition that he was out. I think it was Fredericks. He was out.
Yep.
Tyron's having a big issue. I think, what's his name? I can't even think of the other guy that he's out too. So they're having a big issue. And I said this the other day, this offensive line was one of the best in football a couple of years ago, but now it just looks like a big
shell of his former self.
Yeah, big waste of money. But speaking of changes and speaking of GMs, we would have to travel to Atlanta.
In the dirty South, ladies and gentlemen, as the Falcons fall to the Carolina Panthers, and they went 5-0-5 in the season. And the owner of the Falcons said, "Big man, you go grab your stuff from your office and get out of my sight." As the GM got fired And then he said, "Big man, you give me that playbook. I'm going to toss it in the trash and you get out my sight." As head coach Dan Quinn also got fired.
This is going to sound so terrible.
Say it.
And Helen's going to have to forgive me.
Say it.
But the Falcons owner, Arthur, said, "I'm the only blank that's supposed to be here. I don't want a blank and 5 team." He's saying, if anybody's shooting blanks, it's going to be me.
So, folks, I don't know if you understand what just happened. I'm going to let you know what's happening right now in the studio. Helen ran out of her office with the jar. The jar has spider webs in it, by the way. Not even for Halloween. Like, that's how long it's been since Doc behaved himself. And she proceeded to slam the jar in front of Doc, demanding not even $5. She said 50.
I'm going to pay it in change.
Getting back to the subject at hand, this firing needed to happen.
Oh, yeah, without question.
And we talked about this last week. We're still waiting on the other head coach to get fired.
Which I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
They probably need a worse loss than what they had. We're talking about the Jets, who fell to the Cardinals 30-10.
And he tried it because, obviously he has an excuse. They had an injured quarterback. I made the stupid decision to think that Flacco might have a flash of the past to dominate.
No, even though Joe is playing for his home team,
sure,
quote unquote, because he is from Jersey.
Yeah, whatever.
Unfortunately, the people from Jersey, New Jersey, we do not claim him.
Right. But yeah, so Dan Quinn's out. Dimitroff is out.
Yep.
Gase needs to be out.
Yep.
And speaking of people who are out, obviously we talked last week about the Texans head coach being out, and they finally won a ball game.
They won a ball game. I mean, who knew? All they had to do is get rid of the person at the helm, and they were able to win a pretty good game actually against a very scrappy Jaguars team.
Shout out to Romeo Crennel.
Romeo Crennel, folks. Now, whether or not he'll be the head coach for next year, we can't think that far ahead right now. We're just gonna see what they do for the rest of the season. They got one game, and they just want to win. They just want to win another game.
Who knows? Maybe they'll hire Dan Quinn. He's looking for a job.
Yikes!
Indeed.
Speaking of yikes, though, we had a shootout in Arrowhead Stadium, folks. Your reigning, defending, undisputed National Football League Super Bowl champions of the world, the Kansas City Chiefs, hosting the Las Vegas Raiders and those brooding grinders. And those Raiders, Doc, he's still putting change inside the jar for Helen, by the way, folks. So I apologize. Those Raiders, they got hope. They had their, I guess, Rudy moment. They wanted to do it for Jay Rudy, and they tamed Patrick Mahomes and came out with the victory. And of course, the football world lost his ever-loving mind, acting like this is the end of the world. I told you immediately after the game, I think this is the loss that the Chiefs really needed.
Yeah, Mahomes threw that almost pick six, and I was like, yikes. But I mean, the Raiders played tough. I think the Raiders have played tough for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think they had to get to a point where, number one, Derek Carr was playing at a better level, kind of at the level that he
had the past few years when he was MVP candidate.
Yeah, I just think they needed him to play better and, not be so much like his brother. but he's outshined his brother, and hopefully he's the guy going forward. He kind of fell into that mode where Andy Dalton was, where Matt Schaub was, where like these guys who they have good seasons, but then it's like they need to take that up that next level, So this has to be his opportunity, or the Raiders are going to start shopping for a new quarterback.
Which I don't think they should. I think they should probably stick out with him, see what happens.
I mean, he's still young, 29 years old. He's got some game left in him. But obviously, if a quarterback comes available that can be better,
then they're definitely going to jump on top of that. But speaking of gaming, we also had another shootout. This was actually a really, really good game to watch. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers out there in Heinz Field, as the Steelers clutched out a victory over the 1-3 Eagles. I only have one name to say: Travis Fulgham. Not a lot of people know who he is. And I was telling Doc about it as well, and he was like, "Are you talking about something?" I'm like, "No, Travis Fulgham is absolutely torching this secondary of the Steelers. It was actually ridiculous."
No, I was talking about my play because I was also playing an EFL game. And I thought you were saying that I was playing fugly.
No, I didn't even close. Wrong. No, I wouldn't have done that. So
you should have, because that's how I was playing, like a fugly bum.
Definitely was not anywhere near what I was talking about at all.
But that guy, I mean, obviously, I picked him up on fantasy, of course, because you got to follow the trends, right?
Of course.
He actually played pretty well last week, but nobody really talked about it. But this week, it just so happened that he's the only guy that the Eagles had to score. So
yes, it was actually the battle of the young receivers, because also Chase Claypool also had an incredible game. It looks like he's starting to come around a little bit too.
I'm sure both of these people are in the EFL. You just got to look out for them.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you check out EFL on Twitch.tv as well.
Yeah, don't follow me though.
Stop.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, folks. Then let's talk about that nightcap game from Sunday.
It was a good one. So let's talk about that game.
Yep.
So I was at home drinking my high life, and I was sitting there like, hey man, this game is good. And we always talk about Russell Wilson. And how good he is, and how he doesn't get the praise that he deserves.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there and watching this guy, and I'm like, man, like this is like a 95-yard drive.
Yep.
He's got a minute 15 or 20 or something left. The Vikings just blew it because they could have kicked a field goal, kicked it off. It would have been all good. But they said, no, we want to go for it on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. But to watch Russell Wilson orchestrate this drive in the rain with poise, it was amazing to watch. And then, shout out to DK Metcalf. I mean, here's a guy who really should have been probably a top 10 pick.
Top 10 pick, absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of people,
soured upon him.
Oh yeah, his numbers are great, but I don't know.
Yeah, they don't know if he can actually produce the same kind of results in a pro system.
Goodness.
Man, are they eating their words, folks? Because he had 93 yards on 6 receptions. I mean, he is
he's been dominating. It's almost like this is what we expected.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to play him out, but this is kind of what we expected from Dez Bryant.
I mean, and Dez was really, really good. He just played for the Cowboys, unfortunately.
I mean, Dez was, yeah, I guess you're right. He did play for the Cowboys.
Thank you.
But see, Dez got the, he got the, I guess, the hype, but I don't know if he lived up to that. I could think about it, Dez is maybe because of the way he fizzled out.
Yes.
Think about Dez's first season with Dallas.
People looked at the way he fizzled out versus when he was legitimately like top 3 in the league and as a receiver.
Right. You're absolutely
right.
And
I know J5 is out there and he's, licking his chops in enjoyment, me saying that. But once again, I call the spade a spade.
Yeah. So, because I'm just looking at it here, DK Metcalf got 58 passes, 900 yards, 7 touchdowns in its first season. I mean, Dez, 45 catches, 561, 6 touchdowns. Like, it was good, but it was like, I think DK is what we expected.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
And by we, he meant Doc and Prof, not a lot of the experts who said
we're talking about this. Here's a guy like, and I guess you think about this, imagine if the Packers would have selected DK Metcalf.
Yep.
Talking about a weapon for Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, him and Devontae Adams side by side. That's
goodness.
That's a problem. I mean, in the Vikings, I know they don't like hearing that, especially the Bears. But
But let's digress. So let's get back to this game here. So Russell really, really orchestrated a great drive. I thought it was, something that, people slept on. He definitely should be an MVP candidate, which he normally is. But he needs to get the credit that he really deserves.
He is currently I would say he's probably number 1 at this point because of the Chiefs loss. I feel like people, do things week by week. I honestly thought that he was number 1 all season, but people just disrespected him. And it only took the Chiefs loss for them to say, "Oh, wait, look, Russell Wilson. Oh, he's an MVP candidate. Oh crap, I forgot all about them. Oh, they're a quiet 5-0. No, they're not a quiet 5-0 team, folks."
Yeah, the 12 was pretty loud.
Yes, yes. I mean, they had their own boom.
Right. Yeah, they really do. 16 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions so far.
2 interceptions. Yep. Touchdowns. I believe those 2 interceptions happened the last 2 weeks. I believe. Yep, last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Dolphins and
no, he had 3 interceptions.
Oh, this is 2. Let's go back here. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing.
It was New England, Miami, and then this past Sunday.
Oh, he had one this Sunday?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
I will say one thing that I'm really happy to see is the amount of sacks that he's taken has decreased a lot.
I mean, it should. It's getting out of hand.
It was getting out of hand, actually. It was actually getting out of hand.
But this last game from yesterday was also a good one. I feel bad for my man Herbert.
Justin.
Like, I feel bad for Herbert because here you are, your first 4 games against some of the greats, and I'm sure he probably relished in that opportunity.
Absolutely,
to play
he
with
has.
These great guys, but we're talking about Mahomes, Brady, and now Drew Brees. It's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
And this is the second time that they've blown a 20-point lead, because obviously that happened in Tampa.
Of course.
Which I would have never expected to happen. And that game last night, I mean, I felt like once Drew Brees kind of settled down, it was more like, no Chargers, no.
And you know what the problem was? Like, I blame the receivers. Like, Justin Herbert played an incredible game, but there were so many drops by the receivers, especially towards the end of the game. Big shout out to Mike Williams, who, had a heck of a catch.
Even though I dropped him.
A heck of a catch. But, it was that final play in overtime. He caught the ball and he needed to get the first down. And I mean, Marcus Lattimore got that tackle, and Mike Williams is a much bigger guy. He should have definitely, found a way to body him down to get that first down to extend that drive. And I mean, Marcus Lattimore just made a heck of a play.
That's why I dropped him.
He just, you know what? I'm just gonna let Doc have this. But yeah, Justin Herbert is gonna be a problem in the league. He has, like I said, he's played absolutely box office, and I think more people need to talk about him. And he has
also got the.
Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, and that's despite the fact that they lost Keenan Allen.
I was gonna say he has the luck of Tyrod on his side as well.
We may need to talk about that later on in the season.
I mean, he's starting. He looks good. You just said he was going to be a problem, so it's all good.
Fair enough. But folks, we're gonna be right back with more Debate Amongst Friends right after this, and right after Doc finished paying off the rest of that money.
At the end of every show, we like to do what's called the 2-minute drill, where we go over news and highlights that we didn't get a chance to cover during the show. This week, we had NFL analyst Ian Rappaport suspended for 2 weeks after he shared a social media post that did not comply with the company's guidelines. Go Manscaped. Prof.
Manscaped does not sponsor Debate Amongst Friends, but if they do, we are more than happy to. My first final thought, Terrence Jackson Jr., a Southfield businessman, opened up a mobile bowling alley, which is pretty sweet. Back to you, Doc.
Awesome. Tampa Bay tight end O.J. Howard welcomes a new baby girl, becoming a girl dad, #girl dad. This happened last 24 hours. I believe it was yesterday. Prof?
WNBA legend Cappie Pondexter was declared missing this past weekend. Fortunately, she was found and she's back with family. Back to you, Doc.
Awesome. And finally, congratulations to the WNBA champions, because we didn't get a chance. I know we shout out Sue Bird last week. The Seattle Storm are your 2020 WNBA champions. Breanna Stewart was out there just dominating. Definitely want to wish them happy success. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. We'll be back next week for more highlights, analysis, and the reads.
Yay! Thank you for listening to Debate Amongst Friends. Give us a follow on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
You can also listen to all of our Debate Amongst Friends podcasts here on Anchor, as well as Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and iTunes.
And like we always say, goodbye, mwah, and to all, a good night. LASG.
Peace the ocean.